Technology Week with the theme of Agham at Teknolohiya, Sandigan ng Kalusugan, Kabuhayan, Kaayusan at Kinabukasan. I am Roseanne Fernandez from DOST-NCR and I will be your moderator for today's session. Now to start our program, let us first feel the loving presence of our Lord through an opening prayer to be led by Mr. Jaime Sebastian Jr., followed by the singing of Philippine National Anthem.
Tayo ay manalangin at damhin ang presensya ng Diyos. Panginoon, maraming salamat po sa panibagong araw na pinagkaloob niyo sa amin. Patuloy niyo po kaming gabayan sa mga hamon ng buhay at turuan niyo po kami mas magtiwala sa inyong kapangyarihan higit sa panahong ito. Dalangin po namin na pagkalooban niyo rin po ng karagdagang pangkahusayan ang aming mga tagapagsalita upang mas maibahagi nila ng wasto ang kanilang kaalaman at bigyan mo po kami ng karunungan na maunawaan ang bawat paksa. Panginoon, bigyan mo rin po kami ng bukas na isip at puso na mas makita ang pagpapala na binubuhos niyo sa amin. Balutin niyo po kami ng inyong dakilang pagmamahal, grasya at kapayapaan. Ito ang aming dalangin sa matamis na pangalan ni Jesus. Amen.
At this point, we would like to acknowledge the presence of our resource speaker, Dr. Ramon Christian P. Eusebio, also to our guests from DOST regional offices and DOST agencies, and our partners from the local government units, DepEd, state universities and colleges, and non-government associations. To formally welcome us, may I call on the Regional Director of DOST National Capital Region, Mr. Jose B. Patalinhog III.
It is my pleasure to welcome you, our guests and partners. Thank you for joining us in this session. In the past months, we have been battling a pandemic crisis that went beyond our manpower, facilities, and hospital capacities. It is indeed high time for us to capture scientific facts as we design solutions to manage and mitigate the disease. From the science community, we hope to shed some light and help our heroes in the front lines through science, technology, and innovation. Today, we will focus on Agham at Teknolohiya becoming a foundation of Sandigan ng Kalusugan. We will talk about the utilization of various technologies for personal protective equipment, disinfection to deal with the high volume of possible health hazards of PPE waste due to COVID-19 pandemic. We will be joined by Dr. Ramon Christian P. Eusebio, Chair of the Division of Engineering and Industrial Research of the DOST National Research Council of the Philippines. Allow me to remind you of our challenge of taking scientific knowledge with you to possibly impact your own communities. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you po, Director Jojo. Before we start the discussion of the topic and to give our speaker an idea of the participants' background, let us answer the short survey that will be flashed on your screen. So for the participants attending po the webinar, you may answer po the questions flashed in your screen. So how are you feeling today? For our first question, are you still wearing your pambahay right now? So madami pong sumagot. And which sector are you from? So you may select the answers po. And what are the interests you attend in for this event? And how did you know about the event? So kung kayo po ay nag-register through Facebook, an invitation or referral for this webinar. So while others are still answering po, we would also like to greet yung mga nanonood po sa ating Facebook live streaming. Good morning din po sa inyo. This event will not be successful without the support of DOST agencies in partnership with DOST National Research Council of the Philippines and National Academy of Science and Technology. We would like to extend our gratitude to them and to the staff of DOST-NRCP and NAST who also prepared for this event. Thank you very much po. So for the poll po, we have 67 out of 128 for the response. And many are from the sector of academe and LGU. Good morning po. And the interest that they want to, why they attend this event is to learn new things. Thank you for our participants who answered the poll. And now, to give us a brief background or ideas for today's topic, we prepared for a short video presentation. Let's watch this. To discuss with us the topic on utilization of various technologies for personal protective equipment disinfection, our speaker is a BS Chemical Engineering graduate and a biotechnology at Myongji University, South Korea. He worked as a doctoral research associate at De La Salle University, Manila, and assistant professor at the Engineering Science Department of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Dr. Eusebio is currently working as an associate professor at the Department of the Chemical Engineering University of the Philippines, Los Baños. His specializations include water and wastewater treatment, seawater desalination, mathematical modeling, and membrane technology. In 2017, he was recognized by the National Academy of Science and Technology and given a special citation award for the NAST's Talent Search for Young Scientists. He is currently an associate editor of the Philippine Institute of Chemical Engineers Journal and also a reviewer of water science and technology, water supply, and he is involved in several projects funded by the National Research Council of the Philippines, or NRSCP, USAID Stride, and DOST Shirt. Dr. Eusebio is a chair of the Division Engineering and Industrial Research of NRCP and also the current president of the Philippine Institute of Chemical Engineers Laguna chapter. Dr. Ramon Christian P. Eusebio is currently doing studies on different disinfection technologies for the contaminated personal protective equipment and in order to reduce the demand for PPE supply and ensures that health workers are protected without compromising their own health. Help me welcome our speaker for today, Dr. Ramon Christian P. Eusebio.
Thank you very much, Miss Roseanne, and thank you for DOSC and RCP, NCR for having me and inviting me to be the resource speaker for today's session. So let me share first my PowerPoint. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Today, I will be discussing the utilization of various technologies for personal protective equipment disinfection. I am Dr. Ramon Christian Eusebio, an associate professor of the Department of Chemical Engineering, College of Engineering and Agro-Industrial Technology, University of the Philippines, Las Bañas. I'm also the current chair of the Division 7, Engineering and Industrial Research of the National Research Council of the Philippines, and also the president of the Philippine Institute of Chemical Engineers, Laguna Chapter. As an introduction, the COVID-19 pandemic is rapidly spreading across countries and regions, causing huge impact on people's lives and communities. In the first few months of the pandemic, we experienced a dramatic rise in the demand of surgical masks, goggles, gloves, and gowns that depleted stockpiles, which prompted significant price increases and led to production backlogs of about 4 to 6 months in fulfilling orders. The continuous increase in the number of cases of COVID-19, along with export bans and other trade restrictions, have greatly affected the supply of personal protective equipment worldwide. It is essential to have a secure supply of PPE since it protects health workers from contracting the disease and from infecting others. The most significant challenge is to ensure that critical PPE products are sourced and allocated to frontline health workers and other responders in affected countries, especially those that are not vulnerable to the spread of the coronavirus. Supply chain disruptions from PPE are particularly risky for medical personnel as COVID-19 rapidly spreads. If not adequately protected, healthcare workers who are the frontline defense against coronavirus can infect patients or colleagues, and the need to be quarantined after exposure quickly depletes the health workforce. This is what we encountered here in the Philippines during the pandemic. Even our health workers requested a 1 week ease due to exhaustion and increase in the number of COVID-19 patients. In this figure, you can see the global market for PPE in the health sector, which estimated to be worth $2.5 billion in 2018. Gloves have the highest share of sales revenues at 25%, followed by suits or coveralls at 22%. Face masks and hats came in third with a share of 14%. By region, the US had the largest market share of 33%, followed by Asia and the Pacific of 28%, and Europe with 22% in 2018 based on the data from Mordor Intelligence. There were a lot of press releases in connection to the shortage of PPEs in the Philippines. In the month of April, our country is already experiencing the lack of personal protective equipment. And as you can see in these photos, our kababayans already resorted in wearing grocery and garbage bags as protection. Shortage in PPEs is not only the problem that we are facing. Also, the huge amount of waste that will be generated from the single-use PPEs. There's one article from Greenpeace suggesting support in producing reusable PPEs that will both address PPE shortage as well as waste issues. However, in the month of July, an article published by Manila Bulletin posted by DOH in their website citing that health workers are still struggling with PPE shortage. In response to the problem that our country during this pandemic, the University of the Philippines formed capacity, fabricating intubation boxes, face shields, and testing booths, evaluating and equipping a quarantine isolation center for COVID-19 positive patients, and lastly, addressing both issues of hospital waste management and PPE supply through the use of decontamination chambers. This is the task given to our team. Our team is headed by Dr. Monet Concepcion Detras, the chair of the Department of Chemical Engineering, which leads in the design of this semi-mechanized non-contact decontamination chamber that can disinfect 5 to 10 PPEs set at a time. Our team has begun sourcing materials so that fabrication and testing of treatment efficiency and material integrity can progress. We also established standard protocols for PPE treatment and reuse after the PPE decontamination chambers. But we are still in the experimentation stage. But should the design and procedure prove viable, the decontamination chambers will be made available for both nearby hospitals and the established COVID-19 testing center in UPLB. In order to help health institutions in managing supply shortage, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, has issued contingency and crisis capacity strategies for PPE reuse. The ability to implement specific crisis capacity strategies will depend on the on-hand inventory. This flowchart can assist healthcare facility respiratory program managers in determining if their healthcare facility should operate under a crisis capacity situation. First, you need to evaluate adequacy of current N95 FFR inventory and supply chain. Some of the questions that you may ask are: first, is your current N95 FFR inventory and supply chain equal to or greater than your PPE needs? Next, are there N95 FFRs available from local healthcare coalitions and federal, state, and local public health partners that can cover your PPE needs based on your burn rate and ability to procure more PPE when needed? Also, you can use the Personal Protective Equipment Burn Rate Calculator to help you plan and optimize the use of PPE during the response to coronavirus disease 2019. Another one is to evaluate availability of other respirators in your inventory. The first thing you may ask are there NIOS, or National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, approved respirators that meet or exceed the level of protection of N95 FFRs available in your inventory or from the supply chain to cover your PPE needs? Are there NIOSH approved respirators available from local healthcare coalitions and federal, state, and local public health partners that can cover your PPE needs? Or other devices that can be used include N99, N100, and others, elastomeric respirators, and power air purifying respirators. Or you may also use of these devices includes in the conventional capacity strategies to conserve the supply of N95 FFRS. Next is to evaluate extended use of N95 FFRS. The first one that you can ask is, can extended use of N95 FFRS cover your PPE needs based on your burn rate and ability to procure more PPE when needed? So if your answer is yes to any scenario, you are not operating at crisis capacity. And you can follow the conventional capacity strategies, or if shortages are expected, you can use the contingency capacity strategies. But if your answer is no to any of these scenarios, you should apply crisis capacity strategies. Here, here's the difference between contingency capacity strategies and crisis capacity strategies. Contingency capacity strategies are implemented when there are expected supply shortages, while crisis capacity strategies are implemented when there are known supply shortages. In addition, for the purpose of our topic, decontamination and reuse, although not advisable, may be considered in crisis capacity situations. There are three general strata that have been used to describe surge capacity and can be used to prioritize measures to conserve isolation gown supplies along the continuum of care. The first one is the conventional capacity. It measures consist of providing patient care without any change in daily contemporary practices. This set of measures consisting of engineering, administrative, and personal protective equipment controls should already be implemented in general infection prevention and control plans in healthcare settings. Next is contingency capacity. It measures may change daily standard practices but may not have any significant impact on the care delivered to the patient or the safety of healthcare personnel or HCP. These practices may be used temporarily during periods of expected isolation gown shortages. For the crisis capacity, these measures or a combination of these measures may need to be considered during periods of known isolation gown shortages. This is the contingency capacity strategies for isolation gowns. Number one is selectively cancel elective and non-urgent procedures and appointments for which a gown is typically used by health care personnel. Number two, shift gown use towards cloth isolation gowns. Reusable gowns are typically made of polyester or polyester cotton fabrics. Gowns made of these fabrics can be safely laundered according to the routine procedures and reused. Care should be taken to ensure that healthcare personnel do not touch outer surfaces of the gown during care. Laundry operations and personnel may need to be augmented to facilitate additional washing loads and cycles. Systems are established to routinely inspect, maintain, and replace reusable gowns when needed. Number three, consider use of coveralls. Coveralls typically provide 360-degree protection because they are designed to cover the whole body, including the back and the lower legs, and sometimes the head and feet as well. While the material and seam barrier properties are essential for defining the protective level, the coverage provided by the material used in the garment design, as well as certain features including closures, will greatly affect the protective level. Healthcare personnel unfamiliar with the use of coveralls must be trained and practice in their use prior to using during patient care. Number 4, use of expired gowns beyond the manufacturer designed shelf life for training. The majority of isolation gowns do not have manufacturer designed shelf life. However, consideration can be made to using gowns that do and are past their manufacturer designated shelf life. If there is no date available on the gown label or packaging, facilities should contact the manufacturer. Number 5, use gowns or coveralls conforming to international standards. Currently, guidelines do not require use of gowns that conform to any standards. In times of shortages, healthcare facilities can consider using international gowns and coveralls. Gowns and coveralls that conform to international standards could be reserved for activities that may involve moderate to high amounts of body fluids. Here's the crisis capacity strategies for the isolation gowns. Cancel all elective and non-urgent procedures and appointments for which a gown is typically used by healthcare personnel. Number 2, extended use of isolation gowns. Consideration can be made to extend the use of isolation gowns such that the same gown is worn by the same healthcare personnel when interacting with more than one patient known to be infected with the same infectious disease when this patient housed in the same location. This can be considered only if there are no additional co-infectious diagnoses transmitted by the contact among patients. If the gown becomes visibly soiled, it must be removed and discarded. Number 3, reuse of cloth isolation gowns. Disposable gowns are not typically amenable to being doffed and reused because the ties and fasteners typically break during doffing. Cloth isolation gowns could potentially be untied and retied and could be considered for reuse without laundering in between. In a situation where the gown is being used as part of the standard precautions to protect healthcare personnel from a splash, the risk of reusing a non-visibly soiled cloth isolation gown may be lower. However, for the care of patients with suspected or confirmed COVID-19, healthcare personnel risk from reuse of cloth isolation gowns without laundering among number 1, single healthcare personnel caring for multiple patients using one gown, or 2, among multiple healthcare personnel sharing one gown in is unclear. The goal of this strategy is to minimize exposure to healthcare personnel and not necessarily prevent transmission between patients. Any gown that becomes visibly soiled during patient care should be disposed and cleared. Number 4, prioritize gowns. Gowns should be prioritized for the following activities. During care activities where splashes and sprays are anticipated, which typically includes aerosol generating procedures, during the following high contact patients care activities that provide opportunities for transfer of pathogens to the hands and clothing of healthcare providers such as dressing, showering, transferring, providing hygiene, changing linens, changing briefs or assisting with toileting, device care or use, wound care. But when gowns or no gowns are available, number 5 should be considered. Consider using gown alternatives that have not been evaluated as effective. In situation of severely limited or no available isolation gowns, the following pieces of clothing can be considered as a last resort for care of COVID-19 patients as single use. However, none of these options can be considered PPE since their capability to protect healthcare personnel is unknown. Preferable features include long sleeves and closures that can be fastened and secured, disposable laboratory coats, reused patient gowns, reusable laboratory coats, disposable aprons, combination of clothing. Combination of pieces of clothing can be considered for activities that may involve body fluids and when there are no gowns available. Long sleeve aprons in combination with long sleeve patient gowns or laboratory coats. Open back gowns with long sleeve patient gowns or laboratory coats. Sleeve covers in combination with aprons and long sleeve patient gowns or laboratory coats. For the contingency strategies of N95 mask, first, with extended use, N95 filtering face piece respirators or FFRS are worn for a prolonged period for multiple patient contacts before being removed and discarded, unlike conventional strategies in which an N95 FFR is used for one patient contact, then discarded. This will slow the N95 FFR burn rate to help alleviate supply concerns. And number two, N95 FFRs are used beyond the manufacturer designated shelf life for fit testing and training. After attempting the above contingency strategies and there is still a known shortage of N95 FFRs and available supplies cannot meet needs based on the current burn rate, crisis capacity strategies can be used. For the crisis capacity strategies of N95 masks, first, respirators are used beyond the manufacturer designated shelf life for healthcare delivery. Number two, respirators are used that are similar to National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health approved respirators, but are not NIOSH approved and are approved according to standards used in other countries. Respirators are used that have reached the manufacturer designated shelf life but have not been evaluated by NIOSH. With limited reuse, an N95 FFRS is donned or one patient contact, then doffed and stored before being used for another patient contact for a limited number of donnings. And lastly, the use of N95 FFRS and face mask is prioritized by healthcare activity type. This guidance provides information on how to determine if and when a healthcare facility should be operating under N95 FFR crisis capacity situation during the COVID-19 pandemic and how to appropriately implement limited reuse of N95 FFRS, including the reuse after decontamination. This is the contingency strategies for eye protection. Number one, decrease length of stay for medically stable patients with COVID-19. So as much as possible, limit your time of exposure. Number two, selectively cancel elective and non-urgent procedures and appointments for which eye protection is typically used by HCP or healthcare personnel. Number three, shift eye protection supplies from disposable to reusable devices. So maybe you can reuse the goggles and the other reusable face shields. Number four, implement extended use of eye protection. For the crisis capacity strategies of eye protection, first, cancel all elective and non-urgent procedures and appointments for which eye protection is typically used by healthcare personnel. Number two, use eye protection devices beyond the manufacturer designated shelf life during patient care activities. Number three, prioritize eye protection for selected activities. If the activity is not that important, maybe you can just give him emphasis to the more important activities. Number four, consider using safety goggles that have extensions to cover the side of the eyes. So Maybe just make sure that it is covered. Number five, exclude healthcare personnel at increased risk for severe illness from COVID-19 from contact with known or suspected COVID-19 patients. And lastly, designate convalescent healthcare personnel for provision of care to known or suspected COVID-19 patients. These are the waste treatment that we usually employ for our medical waste. So sterilization describes a process that destroys or eliminates all forms of microbial life and is carried out in healthcare facilities by physical or chemical methods. Steam under pressure, dry heat, ethanol gas, hydrogen peroxide gas plasma, and liquid chemicals are the principal sterilizing agents used in healthcare facilities. Sterilization is intended to convey an absolute meaning. However, some health professionals and the technical and commercial literature refer to disinfection as sterilization and items as partially sterile. When chemicals are used to destroy all forms of microbiological life, they can be called chemical sterilants. These same germicides used for shorter exposure periods also can be part of the disinfection process. Disinfection, on the other hand, describes a process that eliminates many or all pathogenic microorganisms except bacterial spores on inanimate objects. In healthcare settings, objects usually are disinfected by liquid chemicals or wet pasteurization. Each of the various factors that affect the efficacy of disinfection can nullify or limit the efficacy of the process. Cleaning is the removal of visible soil. Examples are organic and inorganic matter from objects and surfaces and normally is accomplished manually or mechanically using water with detergents or enzymatic products. Thorough cleaning is essential before high-level disinfection and sterilization because inorganic and organic materials that remain on the surfaces of instruments interfere with the effectiveness of these processes. Decontamination removes pathogenic microorganisms from objects so they are safe to handle, use, or discard. Let's focus on disinfection. Unlike sterilization, disinfection is not sporicidal. A few disinfectants will kill spores with prolonged exposure times, from 3 to 12 hours. These are called chemical sterilants. At similar concentrations, but with shorter exposure periods, maybe 20 minutes for 2% glutaraldehyde, this same disinfectants will kill all microorganisms except large numbers of bacterial spores. They are called high-level disinfectants. Low-level disinfectants can kill most vegetative bacteria, some fungi, and some viruses in a practical period of time, maybe less than 10 minutes. Intermediate level disinfectants might be acidal for mycobacteria, vegetative bacteria, most viruses, and most fungi, but do not necessarily kill bacterial spores. Germicides differ markedly, primarily in their antimicrobial spectrum and rapidity of action. As you can see here in this figure, the most resistant one is the bacterial spores. And the least one is the lipid or medium-sized viruses. So as you can see, the viruses or the uh, coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 is that easy to eliminate. But in uh, in decontamination or disinfection, you need to apply the appropriate procedure. This is the chemical disinfection uh, prescribed by the Department of Health. This is how to use a strong chlorine solution from 70% chlorine powder. So first, make sure you are wearing extended PPE. And then you may add 10 tablespoons of high test hypochlorite to 20 liters of water in a bucket. And then you can stir well for 10 seconds or until the high test hypochlorite has dissolved. And then after that, wait until 30 minutes before use. And then make sure, remember to label the bucket. Okay. Then cover the bucket with lid and store in shade and do not store in direct sunlight. So this is the way to uh, use the disinfectant for the disinfection. Critical items confer a high risk for infection if they are contaminated with any microorganism. Thus, objects that enter sterile tissue or the vascular system must be sterile because any microbial contamination could transmit disease. This category includes surgical instruments, cardiac and urinary catheters, implants, and ultrasound probes used in sterile body cavities. Most of the items in the category should be purchased as sterile or be sterilized with steam if possible. Heat-sensitive objects can be treated with ethanol, hydrogen peroxide gas plasma, or if other methods are unsuitable, by liquid chemical sterilants. Germicides categorized as chemical sterilants include greater than or equal to 2.4% glutaraldehyde-based formulation, 0.95% glutaraldehyde with 1.64% phenol or phenate, 7.5% stabilized hydrogen peroxide, 7.35% hydrogen peroxide with 0.23% peracetic acid, 0.2% peracetic acid, and 0.08% peracetic acid with 1% hydrogen peroxide. Liquid chemical sterilants reliably produce sterility only if cleaning precedes treatment and if proper guidelines are followed regarding concentration, contact time, temperature, and pH. The activity of germicides against microorganisms depends on a number of factors, some of which are intrinsic qualities of the organism, others of which are the chemical and external physical environment. Awareness of these factors should lead to better use of disinfection and sterilization processes and will be briefly reviewed. So number one, number and location of microorganisms. All other conditions remaining constant, the larger the number of microbes, the more time a germicide needs to destroy all of them. Reducing the number of microorganisms that must be inactivated through meticulous cleaning increases the margin of safety when the germicide is used according to the labeling and shortens the exposure time required to kill the entire microbial load. Researchers also have shown that aggregated or clump cells are more difficult to inactivate than monodispersed cells. The location of microorganisms also must be considered when factors affecting the efficacy of germicides are assessed. Only surfaces that directly contact the germicide will be disinfected. So there must be no air pockets and the equipment must be completely immersed for the entire exposure period. Number two, innate resistance of microorganisms. Microorganisms vary greatly in their resistance to chemical germicides and sterilization processes. Intrinsic resistance mechanisms in microorganisms to disinfectants vary. For example, spores are resistant to disinfectants because the spore coat and cortex act as barrier. Mycobacteria have a waxy cell wall that prevents disinfectant entry. And gram-negative bacteria possess an outer membrane that acts as a barrier to the uptake of disinfectants. Implicit in all these infection strategies is the consideration that the most resistant microbial subpopulation controls the sterilization or disinfection time. That is, to destroy the most resistant type of microorganisms. Number 3, concentration and potency of disinfectants. With other variables constant, and with one exception, the more concentrated the disinfectant, the greater its efficacy and the shorter the time necessary to achieve microbial kill. Generally not recognized, however, is that all disinfectants are not similarly affected by concentration adjustments. Considering the length of the disinfection time, which depends on the potency of the germicide, also is important. Number 4, physical and chemical factors. I think this one is important for the technologies that we will be applying for the PPE disinfection. Several physical and chemical factors also influence disinfectant procedures. We have temperature, pH, relative humidity, and water hardness. For example, the activity of most disinfectants increases as the temperature increases, but some exceptions exist. Furthermore, too great an increase in temperature causes the disinfectant to degrade and weakens its germicidal activity and thus might produce a potential health hazard. An increase in pH improves the antimicrobial activity of some disinfectants, but some decreases the antimicrobial activity of others. The pH influences the antimicrobial activity by altering the disinfectant molecule or the cell surface. Relative humidity is the single most important factor influencing the activity of gaseous disinfectants or sterilants, such as ethanol, chlorine dioxide, and formaldehyde. For water hardness, it reduces the rate of kill of certain disinfectants because divalent cations in the hard water interact with the disinfectant to form insoluble precipitates. Wait, I have difficulty with my PowerPoint. Okay. Um, for organic and inorganic matter, organic matter in the form of serum, blood, pus, or fecal or lubricant material can interfere with the antimicrobial activity of disinfectants. Most commonly, interference occurs by a chemical reaction between the germicide and the organic matter, resulting in a complex that is less germicidal or non-germicidal, leaving less of the active germicide available for attacking microorganisms. Chlorine and iodine disinfectants, in particular, are prone to such interaction. Alternatively, organic material can protect microorganisms from attack by acting as a physical barrier. Number 6, duration of exposure. Items must be exposed to the germicide for the appropriate minimum contact time. Multiple investigators have demonstrated the effectiveness of low-level disinfectants against vegetative bacteria, yeast, mycobacteria, and viruses at exposure times of 30 to 60 seconds. The exact times for disinfecting medical items are somewhat elusive because of the effect of the aforementioned factors on disinfection efficacy. Certain contact times have proved reliable, but in general, longer contact times are more effective than shorter contact times. Lastly, biofilms. Microorganisms may be protected from disinfectants by production of thick masses of cells and extracellular materials, or biofilms. Biofilms are microbial communities that are tightly attached to surfaces and cannot be easily removed. Once these masses form, microbes within them can be resistant to disinfectants by multiple mechanisms, including physical characteristics of older biofilms, genotypic variation of the bacteria, microbial production of neutralizing enzymes, and physiologic gradients within the biofilm. Bacteria within biofilms are up to 1,000 times more resistant to antimicrobials that are the same bacteria in suspension, although new decontamination methods are being investigated for removing biofilms. Chlorine and monochloramines can effectively inactivate biofilm bacteria. As you can see in this table, other different disinfectants can be seen in this EPA.gov. These are approved disinfectants. Just make sure that the active ingredient has the sodium hypochlorite for the liquid disinfectants. This can be used for the SARS-CoV-2 virus, okay? This is the proposed protocol for the use of PPEs. So we have here new PPE use, and then after that, we have the PPE set aside for potential disinfection. This is from DERAC, okay? So the first one is inspection and sorting. This is careful inspection of PPE, including traps. So any soiled or damaged PPE should be discarded. So you need to remove because you cannot reuse that one. So it's for disposal already. So intact PPE should be stored. Next is treatment. Treatment can different treatments can be used like UVGI, heat, or chemical disinfection. Next is reinspection and sorting. After disinfection, careful reinspection of PPE. So if there are some holes, so you need to reinspect that one, okay, for possible reuse. Any PPE with any sign of damage must be discarded. Intact PPE to be packaged for reuse after being appropriately marked as PPE derived from disinfection, including the number of the disinfection cycle. So next is fit checking. Fit checking, we have the frontline staff to ensure that FFR passes fit check prior to use. So it's very important to have the fit test, especially for face masks. It is personalized, so it should be fitted well to individuals. Okay, sorry. These are the studies for. Sorry, I'm having problem with my PPT. Cannot see my PPT. Can I stop sharing first and then I will share again? Sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sorry. Uh, okay. So for the ultraviolet germicidal irradiation, this is UVGI. This is one of the treatment that can be used to eliminate SARS-CoV-2. So there are a lot of studies. So usually you use UVC. It's around 260 to 285 nanometer per Fisher. So the key findings and notes, we have for the stainless steel and N95, but we are more concerned of the N95 for the PPE. So This one is not reached with 1980. So, but no data thereafter. So beyond 60, um, it's already eliminated. Okay. For the next study, we have the healing law. So he used UVC and UVA. So for UVC, it's more effective rather than using UVA. With Inagaki, we also have the 75, which is lower than Fisher. And for Smith, he also used UVC in 254 nanometer. So UVC did not inactivate the virus based on his study. Okay, for the N95 samples. So the author commented, they said that hard to imagine a realistic scenario where healthcare workers would face this degree of mass inoculum. Okay? So we also have the Ozog and Ratnesar Shumate. So this one is for the UV germicidal irradiation, UVGI. This is one of the usual treatment to kill SARS-CoV-2. Another treatment that can be used to eliminate SARS-CoV-2 is heat treatment. So we have different temperature applied. Okay? For Yerswald, we have 56 to 30, 56 degrees, and it should be 30 minutes in 56 degrees. But for, if you increase it to 98 degrees, it can be only 2 minutes. Okay, so they are just playing with the temperature, and then your goal is to know how long will be the contact time. Okay, so you can see here some are 56 degrees, some are 65 degrees. For Chin, 56 degrees also for 30 minutes, but uh, compared to Erswald, we have 70 degrees in just 5 minutes. So it differs. Okay. For the disinfection, this is the findings of the RAC. Let's have here the findings of the RAC. UVGI would not be appropriate for disinfection, he said, of the surgical mask due to their folded construction. So as you can notice in the face mask, it is folded. So he said that UVGI is not appropriate. Thus, heat treatment would be the most readily available option, likely at similar level of FFRIs. UV because it cannot reach the folded. Okay, so you cannot use it. Unlike for heat treatment, that it can penetrate the material. So he said at 60 minutes and 70 to 75 degrees Celsius, it can deactivate the the virus. Okay. This one is for the heat treatment of for the disinfection of isolation gowns. Heat treatment would be recommended due to their size and folds. So as I've said, there are folds. So heat treatment is more appropriate for disinfection. As wiping with the chemical disinfectants would be laborious and prone to failure. We are not aware of disinfection studies undertaken on isolation gowns. Okay? This is based on the Derek study, but we also have a lot of, not a lot, but few studies on gowns. Okay? But more of not heat treatment, but more of UV and hydrogen peroxide vapor. So he said that the heat treatment should be done in 60 to 65 degrees Celsius for 90 minutes. Next is for the eye protection. This should be immersed for at least 10 minutes in a chlorine solution. This is also the same with the Department of Health protocol. So we usually use 5,000 ppm of disinfectant. So in previous slide, I already showed you how to prepare the disinfectant using the chlorine solution. You can also use 80% ethanol solution, but actually you can, now we are using 70%. Okay, but in Derek's study, he used 80% ethanol solution, and you need to wipe it at least 30 seconds. Okay. Afterwards, the goggles eyewear should be rinsed well with warm water to remove the disinfectant solution, which could otherwise damage the equipment or cause skin irritation for the wearer. So you need to, after disinfectant, you need to wash it with water. And then, if possible, just air dry it. Okay? In addition, as goggles and other eyewears can be made of different materials, we recommend testing to make sure the disinfectant will not damage the equipment or the lenses before implementing a chemical disinfection procedure. So some goggles, they have maybe a, garter. So if you use this kind of treatment, maybe it will be affected. So you need to test it, not just the goggle itself, but also some parts of the goggles. For the face shields, okay, these are made of thin plastic and would likely to be damaged if treated at temperature greater than 60 degrees Celsius. So don't use heat treatment for face shield. Okay, maybe you can also use the alcohol for this one. The best approach may be to clean face shield using the same procedure as for eyewear. So previously it's 80%, okay, but now we are just using 70%. It's okay. However, face shields usually have a foam-like material or thicker plastic band on the area that is in direct contact with the face, which may be difficult to thoroughly clean with chemical disinfectants. As I've said before, same with the goggles, you also have like foams or garters, so it can be affected using the heat treatment or even the chemical disinfection. There is a lack of information on the use of UVGI for face shields, and they may be constructed from a wide variety of transparent plastics with different sensitivities to UVC effects. So, as I said earlier, we are using UVC. It's more effective. It is therefore unclear whether UVG can be used once or repeatedly without discoloration or fogging due to UV damage, and testing would be recommended. So you need, if you want to reuse it several times, you need to test it several times for the reuse. These are some decontamination methods for the reuse. So we are not into damaging the integrity of the material. So we are using these methods. So first, you can use ethylene oxide or formaldehyde. You can also use ionizing radiation or microwave. Or you can also use high temperature above 75 degrees, such as autoclave or steam. You can also use ozone or vaporized hydrogen peroxide. So high temperature above 75 degrees Celsius, this one can affect the integrity of the material. So maybe you can consider using other methods like vaporized hydrogen peroxide that is not that destructive to the integrity of the material. So for sample purposes, we have the 3M here. So as you can see, these are the disinfectants that you can use, and then these are the products that they have, and then you cannot use Perox RTU for the series 6500 and the FF 400. So others, you can use this kind of disinfectants. So this is included in their label. So make sure to look because some parts are sensitive, so you cannot subject it directly for the disinfectant. This one is for an example of the filter pre-filter pad. So for pre-filter pad, you cannot use disinfection. It should be disposed. Okay. For the pre-filter assembly, it can be wiped outside surfaces with clean damp cloth soaked in solution, and then follow applicable instruction for cleaning and disinfecting solutions. Okay. Another study is from Schwartz. So this one is the decontamination of and reuse of N95 respirators. He used hydrogen peroxide vapor for this one. So as you can see in this figure, there's testing for the respirator. Okay, so we have the under respirator, inside respirator, and then you also have the biological indicators. This one will indicate if the microorganisms or the virus was removed by the hydrogen peroxide vapor. Okay. Another example or study is conducted by uh, Ibanez Cervantes for the hydrogen peroxide plasma for N95 mask. So as you can see here, there are some parts or some sample sites indicated here, 1, 2. So he got the samples there and then subjected it to analysis. So if there are still viruses present after the hydrogen peroxide plasma treatment, okay, for N95. So you can see here the standard disinfection process with hydrogen peroxide plasma. This one is the study of Fisher. He used UV light, dry heat, and ethanol, and also vaporized hydrogen peroxide for N95 mask also. So you can see here the decrease in the virus, and for ethanol, for heat, for UV, for VHP, and you also have the control. So you're sure that there are a lot of, or the removal of viruses in your sample, okay? And also included here is the mass integrity. So after the treatment, you need to have the fit test. This is just an example for the N95 because N95 should be fitted individually. So if you use that one and you want to reuse it, it cannot be used by other person. It should be used by you. Okay? So this is provided by 3M. And then you can test this one using this apparatus. Okay, so it has a sweet fit test solution and bitter fit test solution. So it will be injected in this kind of like bubble in your head, and then if you taste something sweet or bitter, it means that the integrity of the material or the N95 material was damaged. So this is very important after treatment. Okay, so thank you very much, and if you have any questions, you can ask it in our open forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eusebio, for that very concise discussion with regards to our topic for today. Now, for our open forum, we encourage everyone, as well as the viewers from our FB live streaming, to type in their questions in our chat box, or you may use the raise hand button. So we have collected po some of the questions from our participants. One of the questions, Sir Eusebio, is, are there any efficient and cost-effective PPE disinfection procedure for local setting?
Okay, that's a little bit hard because until now we still have experiment in the experimentation stage. So we have cost effective, but it depends on the what part of PPEs. Like for example, if you are use if you want to disinfect and reuse the the face shield, it's very simple. You just need to soak it. If you want to reuse the uh, what else? The goggles, you can also use the chemical disinfection. But for N95, medyo medyo challenging kasi how can I say? You need to optimize the condition. For example, if you are using hydrogen peroxide, you need to know the contact time, and if the virus was totally removed. Because if hindi siya na-remove, uh, inaano nating risk ng ating mga personnel, yung medical personnel natin. So sometimes isang treatment is not enough. So we need to combine it with another treatment. Like for example, UV, okay, UVC, but or ozone or other treatments. So even though we say that uh, using hydrogen peroxide 100% remove the virus, still we need to make sure 100 there's no such as 100%, 99.99%, we should be sure. So sometimes at least two combination is appropriate, but for other treatments it's a little bit expensive. So but if you customized it and kapag syempre meron ka ng iba na, if the condition is optimized, I think that the cost of the treatment will be decrease. Okay, so but now in the local setting medyo challenging kasi even yung ibang treatments, kasi hindi natin pwedeng anuhin yung heat if we want to reuse. Okay? Pero kung hindi natin i-reuse for disposal, pwedeng heat treatment, pwede rin na na chemical disinfection like yung sodium hypochlorite. Okay, so yun. So we have two scenarios, reuse and disposal.
Thank you po, Dr. Eusebio. Another question po from Sir Bradley. In terms of home-based usage for the PPEs that are cloth-based, what would be the best implemented means of disinfection?
Okay. So for cloth, you need like for example, yung ating mask. So yung standard PPE natin, it's the same composition or same material. So hindi yan pwedeng i-subject sa heat treatment. So you can try using hydrogen peroxide vaporized hydrogen peroxide and UV. But make sure kapag gumamit ka ng hydrogen peroxide ay lahat noong parts ng inyong PPE ay maabot ng inyong vapor. Okay? Kapag gumamit naman kayo ng UV, okay? Just make sure na walang what do you call this one? Yung shading. Kasi hindi niya nare-reach yung mga may shades. So, katulad nung yung binanggit ko kanina na yung may mga folded na parts, hindi effective ang UV kasi hindi nare-reach yung part na yon. So make sure na yung UV ay matatamaan niya lahat ng parts ng inyong PPE. So for cloth, I think yung mga vaporized na treatment, yun ang effective. At saka yung ating UV, I think.
That is well noted po, Dr. Eusebio. Another question po from Ms. Patricia. In UV lights, especially the portable ones, are readily available and sold at online stores such as Lazada and Shopee. Does it really do its job for killing bacteria and other microorganisms? Do you recommend the use of such devices?
Okay. Meron tayong naipakita ko kanina na yun sa study, they conducted UVA, wala dong UVB, pero meron ding UVB, UVC. Pero yung UVC ang kailangan natin. Okay? So yung mga, just make sure na yung bibilhin nyo sa Lazada is UVC kasi hindi efficient yung UEA. So yung UVC yung ating gamitin. So, yeah.
Thank you po. Another question po tayo from Miss Jessen Balingit. How effective are the ozone generators that can be bought online? Many studies claim that they can kill SARS, corona, and almost all of the type of viruses. If it is said to be effective, how can how can I treat PPEs using ozone gas?
Okay. Actually, meron din tayong mga studies about ozone. But yung yung tapos na ilalagay niya dito, it will just clean the air, not killing the viruses. Okay? So I'm using it just for myself and pwede niyo siyang gamitin kapag closed. Pero kapag kunwari merong bumahin, hindi siya mapoprotektahan na para bang, makiklean siya pagpunta sa akin. No. So, yung mga portable na nakukuha natin sa Lazada, it's not intended for the virus na mapatay. Okay? So, yan. Pero meron tayong yung mga equipment na yung vina-vaporize nga niya. Okay? Yung kapag vina-vaporize niya and then nasa isang enclosed na container, so ito rin yung ginagamit doon sa mga hospitals. Sa isang room, magkakaroon ka ng vaporization. So like yung hydrogen peroxide vaporization. Vaporize sa room. Okay? Pero kailangan mo na syempre sa supplier mo. Okay? Nakalin yung room, mga 10 minutes or 5 minutes na naka-on yung inyong equipment. Okay? So, in that case, kapag bumili kayo ng ganong equipment, pwede siyang mapatay yung SARS-CoV-2. Okay, for viruses. Pero yung mga nakasuot ay just to clean the air. Other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Eusebio. Another question po tayo from Senro Paranaque. Do you have gathered data in terms of the number of single-use PPEs used by a medical center? Second, if we use contingency plan, or like if the project you've been doing for disinfectant is already functioning, what is your projected decrease of disposed PPEs?
Okay, yung data kasi nito ay medyo wala kasi tayo dito sa Philippines particularly, no? Pero based dun sa nakalap namin na information, okay? For wait, I just need to make sure na okay. I need to check first, okay? This one, ang nakuha namin, for example, sa PGH, no? So, nakalagay dito is about 10. So, ang inaano nila kasi is 3 PPEs consumed per suspected and probable patient per day. So, 3 PPEs yung nagagamit. So, sa isang buwan daw, 10,000. So, yun yung doon kami nagbe-base kung ano yung generation ng mga PPEs natin. Okay? So pero yung talagang talagang exact number of PPEs we don't have yet. We just have the projection or the estimation. Okay?
Possible po kaya, Dr. Eusebio, that we can email them yung possible projection po for that specific question?
Ay, yung
Or,
sa possible projection of this one ay hindi kami yung nag-a-analyze nito. So we don't have the data. We just ask yung mga hospitals nearby, sasabihin namin ilan ba yung nagagamit nyo per day kasi gusto namin na tingnan kung ilan yung kailangan namin i-treat kasi sa UPLB gumagawa kami ng chamber. And then, yun nga lang, hindi ko lang talaga masabi yung specifics ngayon kasi nga ongoing yung experiment namin. But we are conducting experiments for the reuse of PPEs. So, yun lang, dun lang kami nagbe-base sa data na or sa 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 estimation from them. Okay?
that is understood naman po, Dr. Eusebio. Another question po from our Zoom participant. How about the treatment of waste for disposal? What are the techniques for treatment that you can recommend for our waste collectors and sanitary landfills?
Okay. Actually, dito sa bahay namin, may protocol kami. No? Basta kung ano yung mga ginamit, okay, for kapag lumabas, especially yung mga itatapon na, yung mga single use natin ng mga 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 unang ilagay doon sa chemical disinfection. Okay? So yung sodium hypochlorite. So yun yung ginagawa natin, minimix natin. Ilagay niyo muna lahat doon, even yung mga hinubad ninyo. And then after the disinfection, separate it doon ng nalalagyan. And then dapat sana makollect siya separately. Okay? Kasi just to make sure. Pero actually after the disinfection, we are assuming na wala na siya na wala na siyang SARS-CoV-2. Okay, wala na siyang virus kasi disinfected na siya. Just to make sure na parang tinitreat pa rin siya as hazardous waste or yung ating so ito ay mas okay na gamitin. Kaya lang tayo yung concept ng reuse natin dahil una nung first part ng pandemic ay nagkakaroon tayo ng shortage ng PPEs. And then pangalawa ngayon ay tumataas naman yung ating generation ng waste. So kung we are thinking na kung mapapababa natin somehow by reusing yung ating mga PPEs, mas malilesen yung ating ititreat na waste from PPE, used PPEs. Okay? Thank you.
Sir, maybe request po to repeat lang yung ating answer po from the previous. Nagkaroon lang tayo ng unstable connection po ata. Medyo
Okay.
nag-choppy po yung line.
Okay. So the question is ano yung mas appropriate, right, for
What can we
this
recommend for the waste collectors and sanitary
disposal?
landfills? Yes po.
So ang nabanggit ko ay TPS is yung chemical disinfection using sodium hypochlorite. Yung nabibili natin, like yung mga Clorox. Meron tayo dyan sa grocery na nakalagay doon yung active ingredient niya, yung hypochlorite. So ilang percent. So it should be na active ingredient na hypochlorite. And then you just need to dilute it and make it 5,000 ppm. Okay, yung this is recommended by DOH then. Okay, so once na disinfect na siya, pwede na siya for disposal. Just to make sure na safe pa rin siya. So we are still treating it like hazardous waste. Okay, from like a medical waste. Okay.
Thank you po, Dr. Eusebio. Another question from Senro Paranaque. Since there is the use of ultraviolet rays of different wavelength and frequency, where there are initiatives conducted to use of low-dose gamma irradiation as a form of disinfection of PPEs? If yes, how is it effective, especially if we use irradiation to gram-negative bacteria?
Mm, this one is yung pinagkaiba ng sterilization disinfection. So in our case, we are disinfecting for the SARS-CoV-2. And actually, mas mahirap yung mga spores, bacterial spores, mas mahirap siyang patayin. But we are, our goal is to remove or to to okay, pero ang aming iniiwasan is yung ma-damage yung integrity ng material. Okay? So yung UV I think pwede talaga siyang magamit, just few precautions kapag ginagamit siya, like iwasan siya na maano sa mata kasi bawal siya na may contact or makita. Okay, so dapat ay hindi may contact. So we are trying chamber is contactless din. So risk lang sa ating personnel na magkakonduct ng experiment.
Thank you, Sir Eusebio. For our last question po, from Mr. Kalaguan. When will we probably expect to see improved local products related to PPEs?
Improvement in PPE disinfection or improvement in the quality of PPE?
Maybe, sir, on the quality. Any ideas na lang po siguro?
Because before we are exporting we are importing PPEs. So nabanggit ko rin kanina na minsan kapag nawawalan tayo ng PPE, yung ating kung ano lang yung madampot, yun yung ginagawang PPE. Pero yung quality kasi ng PPEs natin, yan ay standard. Meron talaga yan na standard, yung guidelines para mas ensure natin na yung standard PPE ay or for example, standard gown ay mamimit. Okay? Iba pa yung mga tafeta, iba pa yon yung nakikita natin na improvise na mga yung mga tela na tinatahi. Hindi yun para lang siyang alternative, pero usually hindi yun dapat gamitin ng mga nasa medical. Okay? Yon lang ay kunwari yung less exposure sa mga COVID-19 patients. Pero kapag ikaw ay medical personnel, dapat yung standard PPE talaga yung iyong gamitin. Okay? So I think in terms of improvement ng PPE, standardized ito. I don't think na mako-compromise naman yung quality ng noong PPEs natin.
Thank you po, Dr. Eusebio, for answering the question. To those po na may mga tanong na hindi nasagot due to our limited time, we'll just email po sa inyo yung mga sagot. And for that, we would like to take this opportunity, as this event will not be successful without the presence of our speaker. To award the Certificate of Appreciation, allow me to read the citation. The Department of Science and Technology National Capital Region awards the Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Ramon Christian P. Eusebio for sharing his invaluable expertise as a resource person for the forum titled Utilization of Various Technologies for Personal Protective Equipment Disinfection, held on November 11 via Zoom as part of the 2020 NSTW celebration, signed by our Regional Director, Mr. Josebi Patalinhog III. Thank you po, Dr. Eusebio.
Thank you.
At
Thank you
this
very much
point,
for having me.
salamat po ulit, Dr. Eusebio. At this point, to give us a short synthesis of today's session, may I call on Ms. Ira Madeline Resha from DOST-NCR.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rose Ann and Dr. Eusebio, for your presentation. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a surge of PPE waste. The management of such also became a concern for public health and the environment. According to Mr. Chico Pacheco, President of Integrated Waste Management Incorporated, in the management of healthcare waste, we need to treat the waste to lessen the risk it poses through disinfection. We are very grateful today, Dr. Eusebio, for sharing with us how our country currently handles the pandemic in terms of PPE shortage and the strategies that we have to mitigate it. Dr. Eusebio's presentation highlighted the conduct of PPE treatment for reuse and disposal. In addition to Dr. Eusebio's presentation, the disposal of PPEs does not begin and end in disinfection alone. In practice, hospitals employ the use of color-coded trash bins to manage its waste. From an article posted by PhilStar, San Lazaro Hospital has protocols on the discarding of PPEs and disinfection at source. The disinfected waste go to a service provider's waste treatment facility, which typically disinfects through steam sterilization or pyrolysis. The treated waste is then transported to a licensed sanitary landfill where it is treated again before final disposal. Dr. Eusebio recommends chemical disinfection through use of sodium hypochlorite. The hospitals, however, are not the only contributor of infectious waste. The DILG Memorandum Circular Number 2020-071 required the mandatory use of face masks or other protective equipment in public areas to avoid further transmission of COVID-19. Mr. Joe Binosa of the Eco Waste Coalition noted that the local ordinances should aim to stop the unsafe disposal of used masks and PPEs, promote waste workers' health and safety, and promote health awareness and environmental responsibility among the community. Therefore, local government units are encouraged to strengthen the promotion of infectious waste separation at source, especially among our households. Oceana Philippines and Greenpeace advocate sustainable solutions to the increasing number of PPE waste and the disposal thereof, such as the shift to reusables from disposables and proper implementation of the solid waste program, respectively. Dr. Eusebio discussed how we can properly disinfect and reuse our PPEs. In this presentation, and in the challenges brought by increased infectious waste generation and the COVID-19 pandemic at large, it is our call of action to utilize science and technology in taking care of our health and our environment too. That's all po. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ira, for that synthesis. Surely our participants had much understanding for this topic. To formally close this morning session, May I call on the Assistant Regional Director of Technical Operations Division of DOST-NCR, Engineer Arman P. Bionat. Good morning, Sir Arman. Naka-unmute po ata ang inyong mic.
Oh, okay. I would like to thank our guest speaker, Dr. Ramon Christian Eusebio, for presenting the existing demand of the PPEs, the safety procedure in using these PPEs, and the different technologies for the disinfection of the personal protective equipment. All available technologies were explained and presented well. The ultraviolet germicidal irradiation, sterilization using steam, and disinfection using chemicals. The Department of Health must consider using these safety procedures and technologies to reduce the cost of hospitalization for each COVID-19 patient. Private hospitals can also use these safety procedures and technologies. I would like also to thank the participants from other DOST regional offices, the local government units, academe, and the private sector for attending this very important presentation. And lastly, to the Pamamarisan cluster for organizing this series of seminars. Thank you po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you po, Sir Arman. For some announcements for the upcoming session, for today's afternoon session po, we will be having the topic on examining blended learning experiences of higher education institutions with our speaker, Dr. Jasper Vincent Alantaga from NRCP Division of Governmental Education and International Policies. And for the next two sessions tomorrow, we'll start on 9 a.m. with the topic on the challenge of single-use plastics with our speaker, Dr. Fabian Dairit from NAST Mathematical and Physical Sciences Division, and on the afternoon session with the topic on the demand metrics of urban green spaces, establishing tenets of urban biodiversity with our speaker, Dr. Leonora P. Gonzalez, a licensed environmental planner. We encourage everyone who registered on our webinars to enter the virtual room 30 minutes before the session starts. For those who cannot be admitted in the Zoom meeting room, you can still watch the seminar through FB live streaming on DOST National Capital Region official Facebook page. Kindly check your email for the instructions and guidelines for the remaining sessions. Before we end this session, we would like to take this moment for a photo opportunity with our speaker and participants, and may I request everyone to please open their videos and smile to the camera. Last 5 seconds po. Smile lang po tayo sa camera. Thank you din po sa mga nanonood through the FB live streaming from the official Facebook page of DOST National Capital Region. Thank you po. Again, on behalf of our Regional Director, Mr. Jose B. Patalinhog III, we thank everyone who participated in this webinar, especially to our speaker, Dr. Ramon Christian Eusebio, and to those who watch us through our FB live streaming. This has been your moderator, Roseanne Fernandez, wishing you a blessed day and see you this afternoon. Thank you and keep safe.
We live in an era of constant change. Innovations are so common in this day and
Thank you
age.
po, Dr. Eusebio.
Ignite the mind in these exciting times is how we move the nation in this new millennium. We nourish and heal our people by making them able to do great things. To spread our wings, we save and protect the land in any way we can. We empower the Filipino and unify all. Ignite the mind, light the fuse, the spark of inspiration. Ignite the power of a brand new breed of Filipino. We bring advancements in science and technology to bear. We are DOST and we pave the way for the future. Ignite the mind, move the nation, nourish and heal our people. Ignite the power of a brand new breed of Filipino. Ignite the mind, light the fuse, the spark of inspiration to save and protect the land. We are DOST and we pave the way for the future. Everything starts when you ignite the mind. DOST. We live in an era of constant change. Innovations are so common in this day and age. To ignite the mind in these exciting times is how we move the nation in this new millennium. We nourish and heal our people by making them able to do great things. To spread our wings, we save and protect the land in any way we can. We empower the Filipino and unify all. Ignite the
Good morning po sa mga remaining participants natin. For the e-certificate, kindly accomplish the evaluation form given to our chat box. Until 10 p.m. today lang po siya pwedeng ma-access. Thank you po.
mind, light the fuse, the spark of inspiration. Ignite the power of a brand new breed of Filipino. We bring advancements in science and technology to bear. We are DOST and we pave the way for the future. Ignite the mind, move the nation, nourish and heal our people. Ignite the power of a brand new breed of Filipino. Ignite the mind, light the fuse, the spark of inspiration to save and protect the land. We are DOST and we pave the way for the future. Everything starts when you ignite the mind. DOST. We live in an era of constant change.